Greetings, Council Chairperson. I am Dr. Hamilton with the My Mother's Keeper and Healthy DC and Me. We're meeting in this community often to talk to you about accountability. Two things you mentioned that I want to bring up this evening. You talked about disbanding DCRA, and my concern is that we are still not able to address the mold. You know, you came up with the Mold Act, and you talk about accountability. Woodbury Village, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
I visited it.
Yeah, are you working on a bill, and how do we hold you accountable for a bill that you created and we still have citizens, so many, with mold? That's my number one question. As you talk about working on DCRA, I want to talk about working on enforcements and accountability truthfully. Okay. The second thing I want to understand is you talk about the Bradford City structures and the legal aids for our public citizens. But my concern is that when they're dealing with such egregiousness as the OAG has pointed out, in terms of the slumlord relevance in the city, why are these legal folks funded with grants from the city that doesn't allow the citizens to go to civil court? I'm being told by the legal entities that they can't work on cases for citizens that have civil concerns, and citizens that have been living in mold and with rats and no heat have civil concerns. So these housing condition processes are not working. When you talk about Bradford City and some of the other legal aids that are in place, we're concerned that more of the same is going to happen, especially since you were just so successful in the primary.
I'm a little bit confused by the second question, because access to justice funds civil legal service providers, civil legal services. Now, its focus tends to be on government benefit programs and landlord-tenant court, but there's nothing that precludes it from dealing with any other civil matters that deal with a tenant. You were asking about tenants, a tenant's rights.
And most specifically enforcement. What I understand from, I'll be very transparent, Kalecki over at Rising for Justice, I know you're familiar with. I also know that Rising, Bradford City, Ms. Taylor Hitley and others, you're familiar with Woodbury Village, so we don't have to replay that tonight. But what I'm concerned about was the lack of available community resources to allow these tenants to come out of that, and then for them to stay in it so long, knowing that the accountability and the enforcement wasn't in place. They looked for relief when you showed up and got none. So I want to understand, how do we stop that? Because that's the frustration.
Well, the problem there is DCRA, which in my view is not committed to its mission. Its mission, when we're talking about housing code, is ensuring safe and compliant conditions for folks living in rental housing.
I agree.
They're not committed to their mission. Okay. This is why we're breaking up the agency and creating a new Department of Buildings with the hope that the new agency, which will be more narrowly focused, construction and housing code, that there's a chance it will be more committed to its mission. So yeah, I visited Woodbury Village, and I was pissed off that DCRA comes out, there's no heat, and the housing inspector cites them for no heat and says he'll be back in a month.
Right.
And I contacted the director, and I said, no, that doesn't work. You should be back out in a matter of a day or two.
Mr. Mendelson, I want to report and say to you that we can't solve